Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to talk about something that affects pretty much every single one of us, every single day. It's this thing called inflation. And honestly, it's kind of like this invisible force behind some of the biggest questions we have about our money. I mean, you know that feeling, right? You ever feel like your money just doesn't stretch as far as it used to? You go to the grocery store, you fill up your car, and you look at that receipt and just think, wait a minute, I bought this same stuff last week and it was less. It feels like a real mystery. And you know what? Today, we're going to solve it.
All right, so first up in our little investigation here, we need to unmask the culprit. I mean, what is this thing that's making our wallets feel lighter and our shopping carts, well, a little emptier? Let's put a name to this phenomenon.
And here it is, the big word itself, inflation. Now, it's super important to get this right. We're not just talking about the price of milk going up 1 week. Nope. This is about the overall rise in prices for goods and services across the entire economy. And it happens over time. Think of it as this slow, steady, but incredibly powerful economic current.
So here's the absolute key takeaway. When inflation is happening, it's basically attacking your money's purchasing power. What on earth is that? Well, it just means that a dollar is still a dollar, right? It looks the same. But what that dollar can actually buy, that gets smaller and smaller.
And this just lays it out perfectly. In the past, your money could buy more stuff. During a period of inflation, that same amount of money buys you less. I mean, think about it like this. A $20 bill, say 10 years ago, that could get you a lot at the movies, right? Maybe a ticket, popcorn, a drink, the whole deal. Today, that same $20 bill, well, it might just barely get you in the door. The bill hasn't changed, but its power has definitely shrunk. Okay, so we've identified our culprit, inflation. But that just leads to the next big question, right? Why does it happen? What's the motive here? Well, it turns out there are two main reasons, two main drivers we really need to get a handle on. So cause number one is all about super strong demand. You've seen this happen. Just imagine a brand new, super popular gaming console drops, right? But the company only made a limited number. Suddenly, everyone wants one. That's what economists are talking about when they say too much money chasing too few goods. When way more people want something than there is stuff available, guess what happens? Prices go up. It's basic supply and demand. Okay, now for cause number two. This comes from the complete other side of the equation. It's when it just costs more to make things. So if the price of lumber or oil or even paying workers goes up, it gets more expensive for a company to produce, say, a chair or a car. And what do they usually do? Well, they pass that extra cost on to us, the people buying the stuff, and that means higher prices. So if we think of inflation as kind of like the temperature of the economy, sometimes it runs a little too hot. And you might be wondering, well, is anyone in charge of the thermostat? And the answer is yes, there absolutely is. There are authorities whose entire job is to try and keep things from getting too hot or too cold. So here in the US, that main authority is the Federal Reserve. You've probably heard them called the Fed, right? They're our central bank. And one of their biggest, most important jobs is to manage inflation. And they do it using this really powerful set of tools called monetary policy. So how does the Fed actually do it? How do they turn down the heat? Well, it's pretty fascinating. When inflation starts rising too quickly, the Fed's main move is to raise interest rates. Now, what that does is it makes borrowing money more expensive for everyone. For you, if you want a car loan or a mortgage, for a business that wants to expand. And when it costs more to borrow, what happens? People and businesses tend to borrow and spend less. That slows down the economy, demand eases up, and voila, inflation starts to cool down. Okay, I know, the Fed, monetary policy, that can all sound pretty high level and, honestly, a little abstract. So let's bring this right back down to earth. Let's talk about how this whole economic juggling act really impacts your wallet and your future. And the truth is, it hits us right where it hurts, in our everyday essentials. We're talking about food, housing, getting around, healthcare. When inflation is high, it just means you're spending more money just to stay in the same place, to maintain your standard of living. That weekly budget you have, it has to stretch just a little bit, or a lot of it, further. But here's where it gets kind of scary, especially when you think about your future. All that money you've worked so hard to save, inflation is actively eating away at its value. I mean, imagine you have $100,000 tucked away in a savings account. In 5 years, yeah, the number will still say $100,000, but what you can actually buy with it will be so much less. It's why people call inflation the silent tax on your savings. And that right there is exactly why you hear so much about investing. It's the main strategy people use to fight back. They put their money into things like stocks or real estate or other assets, hoping that the value of those things will grow faster than inflation is shrinking the value of their cash. It's all about trying to protect and hopefully even grow your purchasing power over the long haul. So after all that, it really seems like inflation is just the villain of the story, doesn't it? I mean, this constant threat to our money and our future. But here's where the story takes a little twist, and it might actually surprise you.
So you'd think the goal would be simple, right? Let's just get rid of it. Let's aim for zero inflation. I mean, if rising prices are the problem, then prices that never change must be the solution, right? But is that really what we want?
And this is where we get to that twist. Because while, yes, high inflation is really destabilizing and bad for an economy, believe it or not, most economists agree that a little bit of moderate, steady inflation is actually a good thing. We're talking like a target of 2% a year. Why? Because it encourages people to spend and invest their money today, instead of just sitting on it. And that spending and investing is what keeps the whole economic engine running and growing.
So when you boil it all down, it's not really about eliminating inflation altogether. It's about keeping it in that sweet spot. Not too hot, not too cold. It's this constant, delicate balancing act. And that really leaves us with a much bigger question to chew on, doesn't it? The real conversation isn't just about prices. It's about what kind of economy we want to live in and how we strike that perfect balance to make it work for everyone.